Any time you use your coffee machine, any day you make a coffee, at the end of the day you do need to backflush it. I'd recommend first with water, then with coffee cleaner, no more than a quarter of a teaspoon, and then again with water as a final round to almost clear the chemical. If you're using a Linea Micra, I would suggest moving the paddle over, sort of counting to 5, 3 times. That would be the max, and that would, at the end of the day, clean your coffee machine, ready to use for the next morning. I like to look at it as you're cleaning your dinner plate. You wouldn't eat off a dirty plate. Weekly to monthly, I would, if you feel confident enough, you can buy what we call a stubby screwdriver. So a small screwdriver which allows you to remove the diffusion screw and the shower screen. I would take them, put them in a little bath of hot water and your coffee cleaner and let that soak for a few minutes. And if you do that once a week, that keeps all of that clean. And a tiny addition to that is if you pop out your basket of your portafilter and just give that a proper clean. I think the most underrated maintenance you can perform for a home user, they can perform on their machine, would actually be to purge the steam boiler. And by that, there's sort of 2 ways to do it. And by purge, I mean replenish, for example. So by turning the machine off when it's pressurized, but turning the steam valve open, you can get rid of all the steam, which then would allow it to, then when you turn it back on, to make fresh steam kind of thing. So with that, if you open your hot water valve and actually get rid of some of the water that sits in there, it helps keep the steam it creates fresh. Because if you keep the same water in there and you only ever use steam, you're not replenishing the water. So it can mineralize, which can affect the overall health of the steam boiler. So a little tip would be once a month, completely drain it with your hot water, or just empty the steam, and it will allow it to do it again. Water for coffee machines and water for coffee, it is a bit of a rabbit hole that you could be an expert just in water for coffee machines and water for coffee. We would generally recommend a sort of medium mineral content water, which usually comes from filtered water or bottled water. So aim for something that is medium, has like an average mineral content, because if the minerals in your water are too high, it will help you extract solubles from your coffee, but it is more susceptible for sort of physical damage and physical minerals to be present inside the machine. But if you alternatively go too low with your mineral content, you're going to struggle to get the best out of your espresso. It won't be as bold, it won't be as lively on your mouth like as the front flavors. So that's why halfway between, so average mineral content is the best balance for your coffee machine health and your taste of your espresso. But anything filtered we recommend. It's only when you go up north and you get very soft water that we then maybe start recommending the opposite, because that's quite low mineral, so you want to go a bit higher. But generally, yeah. And there's so much information online. I'd say do your research, try different waters and just find what works for you, because there are a lot of different opinions out there. Yeah, I think the only accessory, Marzocco oriented accessory would be to download the Marzocco app for home, and that way you can monitor your coffee brewing, your extraction times, your coffee boiler temperature, your steam boiler temperature, and you can control the steam power. So I think that's a great accessory that Marzocco endorse. I mean, the first recommendation I'd have is to empty the reservoir, which a lot of people forget. Empty the reservoir and empty obviously the waste box, but remember to empty the reservoir. The Micra, it's fully detachable, so you can take it away and to your sink and empty it. With the Mini, you sort of bring something to it to empty it. Just be careful of water getting everywhere and damage to the external panels. Keep it in a safe and secured box. Strap it down, put that in a safe, and then put it in your car and travel, and you'll be fine. If you have to have your coffee machine off for a long period of time, it can be susceptible to some blockages when you come back and turn it on. So sort of as a home user, the best thing you can do before sort of getting in touch with someone technical or us for advice would just be to backflush it, because that should clear any blockages that have built up from sort of stagnant water just sitting in place, cooling down, and maybe it can create a bit of mineralization that can block some of the water flow. So if you notice when you come back and your machine heats up, there is a slightly lower water flow coming from the group head, a good old backflush can really help. That would be the first thing I'd do if I came back from holiday. Not necessarily with chemical, but just to get it all cleared, get it all going, and get hot water going around it again. I obviously come from a coffee machine perspective, and I would say to utilise your coffee machine in order to get a good espresso, because these days people like their espresso how they like their espresso. You know, my preference isn't necessarily your preference, but I'd go back to I'm quite keen on the water flow. So whenever I look at a coffee machine and I engage brewing without a portafilter, I can tell instantly if my water flow is good. If there's any blockages, like you can tell. And as long as you've got consistent flow, that's what we spend so much time, and we've created products to help essentially water flow for extraction. So we do things to prevent channeling, we do puck preparation. So my approach would be from the coffee machine and make sure your water flow's there, so that all that stuff you do isn't negated by your coffee machine. So that would be my first tip. Keep everything clean. Lots of purging before you use your steam wand and after. So then you've done your lovely espresso, and that will, if you're putting milk in it, you wouldn't want the last bit to affect the taste of it all. So yeah, the Antibac valves were remade and work on a slightly different technology. So originally, it was a small sort of pad seal and rubber O-ring that worked, that once the boiler was at steam pressure, it actually pushed a small shaft up to create the seal. Both those parts are very perishable. The pad seal itself and the O-ring, both on home machines and commercials, often the part that an engineer would visit, just that part would perish before the machine needed a service. So at the production, that was something they wanted to improve, because it was an extra call out, an extra bit of maintenance that didn't last as long as the other products, other perishable parts of the machine. So 100% the new part is longer lasting. It's based on thermal technology rather than pressure. So therefore, when it reaches 100 degrees up to 124, it's got two springs that actually expand that create the seal. So they're less perishable. I would say more so that the old Antibac would even need to be replaced every 6 months, specifically more on commercial machines. Whereas yes, this might need to be replaced every year, but actually it's more replace it when it needs to be, and I believe it lasts longer than a year now. I would stand by that. I think much more durable, and I've not had to replace or heard of many being replaced since. Yeah.
Oversimplify the coffee machine to say that it's a kettle with a pump.
Yeah. Is it though?
Well, it's a lot more than that. It's obviously like a gross.
But I've actually said that before. I've said to people, the coffee machine doesn't know it's, when I do like initial trainings for people to understand what it's doing, I was like, the coffee machine doesn't know it's a coffee machine. What it knows is that it's a vessel that heats water, and can release it and stop it and open and close kind of thing. So
I love the simplicity of actually, no, it looks like an incredibly simple problem, but it's very, very hard to get fix, right?
Yeah.
And that, I suppose, applies to espresso in general. But even with the machine, like, it's a simple thing. It's like you have your 9 bars. Like, that is 9 bars, regardless of how you prepared your pot.
Yes.
So the machine needs to understand how much resistance do I get and stuff like that. So it's a much more complex, and obviously the puck changes as the water is being pressed. So I think it's incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Like that's why the brew by weight is such a complicated problem, right?
Yeah.
But I love how it looks so simple.
Yeah, that's a really good example of it, and it made me think of even like the heating elements to hold 93 degrees. Like we have, your fridge has to hold a temperature. You know, your boiler in your house does, and it's actually not easy for a machine to be programmed to say 93, oh, you're a bit too high, bit down, or, you know, and it is smart. It's a very smart thing.